What's up? This is Chad. I am here with Vanessa, Leonard, and Joe Morales from A Story Worth Living. We're going to be talking about it, getting their input on the movie, how the movie came about, some fun back stories from the back scenes of it. So we'll start with Vanessa. She is the creator, many minds of A Story Worth Living. Vanessa, we did previously talk 3 years ago now.
I remember that. I was in the middle of editing.
It was BC before COVID. So I'll link it so you can see it right here. How did A Story Worth Living come about?
Well, I've been acting in film since 2012, and I've always wanted to get into a film festival I could travel to. I don't know why that was always the goal. And I think there was an undertone that, without actually saying it out loud, I think it was always Sundance. But the more that I learned about Sundance, the less realistic that dream came, unless of maybe making a short film, but nevertheless. I've been in some really amazing feature independent films and very much coming of age. And for instance, Talk Nerdy to Me, that was really great. I loved it. But unfortunately, it premiered and nothing really ever came of it after it having the local screening. So I want to say it was that film that kind of, I guess, put the fire under my butt and to really give myself a pep talk. That was, I think, December 2016 is when Talk Nerdy to Me premiered locally. And it was as cliche as could be, but January 2017, I wrote out a list of resolutions and I'm like, write your own movie. And so I met with many people. I knew exactly what I wanted it to be about. I knew I wanted it to be a drama because I feel that a drama narrative would have been well received in the festival circuit, and it has, thankfully. As well as I wanted to be about mental health. I know that there has been mental illness movies, but oftentimes it's portrayed in a dramatized horror or suspense drama, which I love those two genres. But I really wanted to give something that portrayed mental illness in a authentic way to make it relatable to many people. So I believed I was able to accomplish that with the writing of A Story Worth Living.
You did, because thankfully, when you came down to Florida a couple weeks ago, you actually gave me a copy, and I absolutely watched it. And the first text, like, Joe, you don't know about, the first text I sent her was, "I hate you." She goes, "Why?" And I'm like, I'm not supposed to cry because it's such a moving movie. It really is, because one of the things I loved about it was you are instantly attached to Allie, and then you're instantly attached to I'm sorry, what's your character's name, Joe? That's escaped off my head.
Jake.
You're instantly attached to Jake, and then you're with them the entire roller coaster of the movie. So it's you are so attached to these characters, and not gonna lie, Jake seemed very too good to be true type of guy. He really did. I'm not gonna lie. That's my opinion. He's like, that guy doesn't exist, or it's like he's from the series You. I was like, yeah.
You came out after A Story Worth Living, but yes, or after I wrote it, whatever. But yeah,
you're right. Because we talked. I don't know if I was your first one you talked to, but you did bring it to my attention. We talked. We had a good conversation about the movie. And then obviously I couldn't help because I moved. But one of the things that kind of struck me is why mental health, because obviously in the past 10 or so years, mental health has been a thing, a very big thing. You see it in movies, but I think you said it best of how it's portrayed in movies. Can you
Oftentimes it's dramatized. I forget which movie it was, but I know it had Rooney Mara in it, and I have my phone right here, so I could look it up on IMDb. But it was a fantastic movie. I forget what it was called, and it even had like a plot twist at the end. It was very suspenseful, and it really highlighted mental illness. But again, it was done in a suspense genre, which again I love. But I really just wanted to portray mental health in just a normalized fashion, because realistically, statistically, 1 in 5 adults have some sort of mental or emotional trauma. And that's, whether that's something that they're actively, because I mean, I even have a past with mental health issues, but thankfully I've recovered from that. And I do believe in recovery, but then again, also you have to work for it. And maybe it's that recovery isn't for everyone. I don't know. It depends on the severity of the illness that they're having. But with that being said, though, 1 in 5 adults have some sort of mental or emotional trauma. And these people are normal. They are our friends, our neighbors, our coworkers, family members. And they go to work at the office. They go out and get the paper, they're cutting their grass. And but unfortunately, they just perceive life differently that causes stressors, or I hate the word, but it's true, triggers. And it's just how they, process. And I don't know. I'm hopefully that's the best description I can come up with mental illness. And I do want to say, this is my disclaimer: I'm not an advocate for mental health. Please do not put me on a pedestal, because I will not say everything factually accurate. I will not. I'm not a professional. And many times, and I know that Joe can vouch for this. When we were at both premieres, people were coming up to us and talking about mental health, talking about the importance of it. And that's why I partnered with the local organization ZEP Center, because they're the professionals. I just really wanted to help bring the issue to the spotlight to really get the conversation starting. But absolutely, I mean, if you're watching this and if you need help, do not take my word for advocacy and being a professional, because I'm not.
That's very, very good words. You also see mental health in, I think we discussed this too very early on in your writing phrase, is you see a lot of mental health issues in horror movies. And they don't really tackle the subject. They just say it's like a crutch pretty much in the plot, in the genre, which thankfully this does not do. The mental health in this movie, it really is the driving force of the movie, because you don't really know about it immediately. You know about it end of the second act, I want to say, leading to the third, is where the mental, because it's not at the first, it's not a mental health movie. It's not.
Yeah.
And then it hits you in the second act, late second act. So
when Allie opens up to Jake, yeah.
So at first you just think it's a romantic comedy movie, and then it takes you on this different turn, which is very emotional, and it's very like captivating. So Joe, I worked with you on a short movie, Never Again. That was the first time you met Vanessa, is that correct?
Yes.
And I remember Vanessa pulled me to the side during one of our breaks and says, I want to get him in the movie. I'm like, one, I didn't know what movie she was talking about at the time. And I'm like, what? She said, told me Story to Living. I'm like, yeah, if you want to ask him, bring him on, audition him. What was your thought process of like the original story of the movie?
So at least from what I remember from at least on Never Again, I think it was during one of the breaks, and Vanessa's like, hey, so you want to continue doing any of this acting stuff, right? I said, yeah. I was like, I've been pursuing it. Like, I would like to keep trying. And she goes, here's a script. I just want you to look it over. She goes, tell me what you think. And I remember I was like, I started looking over it and I'm like, I really liked the fact of how the mental health was portrayed in that. It was just like a story of two people. There wasn't some, big crazy thing happening like it would in a horror film or any sort of thriller. So I was like, okay, this is very nice. It gave me a lot of Walk to Remember vibes too. And I remember she was like, yeah, I was kind of going a little bit for that sort of feel to
I
it.
was inspired by Walk to Remember.
Yeah. And I
Walk to
remember,
Remember, by the way, is from 97, I believe, 97 or 99. So that just shows you how long, how much this was needed in like a modern day.
yeah.
fashion.
I don't know. Yeah, I liked that story when I was a kid. I was like, it was a good movie. And I'm like, I was like, this is something different from things I've done. Cause I feel like I've done a lot of like horror suspense films. And I was like, okay, this is kind of a different sort of take into it. So then when Vanessa put out the call to audition, I was like, okay, yeah, I want to audition. I was like, hopefully she remembers me. I was like, it had been maybe a couple months, I think. And then you started auditioning people, and went through a couple rounds of auditions, and then was told, hey, yeah, I want to see if you want to do this. And then we had to figure out a schedule just because I was 2.5 hours away. So it was constantly like traveling, and the scheduling just worked out really well for the film too.
Because Joe lives so far away, actually, I edited as we went. So just to keep costs down, I actually did the editing myself, not coloring or sound or anything of that nature, but just putting the video footage together. And there were reshoots, but we shot them as we went because I wanted to utilize Joe's to the best that we could.
Yeah, that's very smart, especially when you have an actor so far away. And that's, very, captivate the time. Just to correct you, Walk to Remember was 2002. I looked it up because it did not seem like a 90s movie. It's
Really?
Oh,
Yeah.
because yes, I think that it's 20 years, I think.
Yeah, it's 20 years.
You know what? Mandy Moore did just post that it's 20 years. That's right. Wow,
Yeah,
what movie
because
do I think
I'm
is
like, no, because 90s was the teenage comedy movies. And that's a Walk to Remember is a straight teenage romance drama.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that wasn't 90s, but it's whatever. I just had to correct that in case,
Thank you.
Captain-
I'm literally mind blown right now though, because I totally
Yeah.
thought it was like 97 or 99.
yeah. So, Joe, have you done anything like this before? Like this kind of type of character of Jake?
I'm trying to think back. Not really, because Jake was very, very wholesome. He just was always wanting to be there to help. As you said, it was almost someone that was too good to be true.
Yeah.
I feel like any of these other characters I've played, there's always been some kind of like, oh, I think I played a teenager before that would go and get kids drunk. I've just never really played a role like this too, and never been on a set like this where things were, as much as you probably think, Vanessa, it wasn't organized. It was super organized. And it was a blast to work on because you already had the vision of what you wanted. And you're like, go with this, see what you feel. And it was just a fun, just an amazing time to just be able to be on a set where everybody was just kind of in a collaborative environment, where it was like everybody had the vision, and if things needed to change, you just changed it. You did what you had to do. But yeah, this was something completely different that I had not done before.
Yeah,
I
it's
have a
good to
Can
go
I ask
out
you a
there
question?
and yeah, go ahead.
Was this the smallest set you've ever been on?
No, I want to say, well, maybe, yeah, actually it might have been the smallest set, because it was you're right. Smallest set I've ever been on, with you as director, writer, actor, and then also there was Zach who was doing cinematography, and Chris was doing sound, and Kayla was on set too. It was just, yeah, and it all depended on the day. I think the only big day was the Bonnaroo scene.
Yeah. Honestly, we kept cast and crew so small. I just didn't want to waste people's time or have them just waiting. Occasionally we would have 2 shooters, but overall it was mainly just Zach, Chris, me, and Joe.
Mm-hmm.
What since you had a small crew and you said you had one shooter, Zach, who we all know, Zach Koloff, very talented filmmaker, cameraman. How long did a shooting day go? Vanessa, because I asked this because you know how long my shooting days go.
Joe can answer that. Do you want to start from the time you left your house to the time you returned, or?
All right, yeah, we could do that because I know there were days, but you even scheduled it to where you're like, hey, don't get here until like 11-ish, noon, maybe 1. Like you actually timed it out because you knew I had to drive. So I think I would get up.
Only one time I made you leave early, and I want to say it was like 5 or 6 a.m. One time. I forget. I think that was the
What's that?
the tattoo scene, because I think we had to be there at like 9
right.
or 10.
Yeah. Just
But
because
other than that, yeah, I made
right?
sure that you could sleep in and
But it was always like, hey, don't be mad. Never did I get mad. I never cared. I was like, just tell me what I got to do. I don't care. But no, I would leave. Mainly, it'd be like 9 or 10 o'clock, and then I'd get there at about between noon and 1. Long days of shooting as always, and so most of the time I would get home probably about 1 or 2 in the morning. I think. Just about, but there weren't too many days where they were all in a row too. You would split them up so much just so that way. There were some longer weekends, I think, but it was just like whenever it was a holiday or where we could actually take advantage of that time. But other than that,
Did you ever stay?
No.
You never stayed in town?
I want to say, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, but I don't think he ever shot back to back a Saturday and Sunday. I think it was either Saturday or Sunday.
I want to say yes. There might have been one time where it was scheduled for 2 days back to back, but I think it was like my scene was early on, and then for the next day it was way later. But no, I never stayed, and that's just because I'm weird and I sleep better in my own bed. So I just drove home every time.
Man, oh.
I don't think I could do. I don't know if I could do that now, though. I think now I'd be like, no, I need to sleep. Nope, I need to be wherever I'm at. I'm staying.
Half the locations in A Story Worth Living, which I know we're probably going to discuss soon, but like I've been to, that's the only reason why I wrote them in the script, because I knew it was realistic to pull them off, because I went to them. And the mountain scene, for instance, this is so exhausting. I want to say this is 2015, and it was a Tuesday. And I took the day off of work. I asked a friend, I'm like, hey, do you want to go hiking? And she's like, where would we go hiking? And I'm like, the mountains are 6 hours away. Here's the thing. We get up, we rent a car because we didn't want to use our own cars for some reason. But we rented a car at 8, probably left it closer to 9, got there about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, hiked for maybe 2 hours. And then we were back on the road. And then I was home by like midnight, 1 o'clock, and then went to work the next morning. Thinking about that now, that is so exhausting. And I'm like, I would never do that.
Well, so you kind of, we'll jump into it now. Your locations, amazing. You did a lot of amazing stuff. Because I know the backstory to a lot of these locations that you did. How many? And I think that's one of the trivia things you put on IMDb. How many states did you go to? Or you filmed in?
3 states. I think it was 9 or 11 cities. It's one or the other. I want to say 11.
Because I know Michigan, you did. Ohio, obviously. West Virginia. So that's West Virginia, obviously, that's long because from where you guys are located, and I know where you are, that's a long drive. So was that always the plan when you're writing the script, is to have locations like that?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I went to the mountains in 2015 and I fell in love with it. And at the time, I had no idea that I was going to put this in a movie 2 years later or 3 years later, but it just happened to work out. And then same thing with the waterfall scene. I think me and a girlfriend went there, I think either in 2016 or 17. But again, I randomly found out that Ohio has a crap ton of waterfalls. And yeah, fun fact. And I ended up, and they're all near the Columbus area. So me and another girlfriend set out, took the day off of work, and visited, I think, 3 waterfalls that day, just, looking around. And we ended up swimming in the Indian River Run Falls something. And it was much more accessible then than it was when we filmed at it, which I'm sure we'll discuss as well. But yeah, so like I said, all of these really cool locations I thankfully have been to, and that's why I wrote them into the script, because I knew it was realistic to shoot at them.
What did you think about that, Joe, about going to West Virginia and everything?
That I loved that day actually, because they had picked me up again with the small crew that we were. I think it was Vanessa, Zach. It was just your car, I think, too.
Dusty, yeah.
Dusty, and we all first you came and picked me up at my house, and then because I think it was only a 3-hour drive from my house, but still from their drive 3 hours to my house, and then 3 more hours to West Virginia. And after like climbing up, it was like first we're like, okay, we just want to take this in first before even shooting, because it was just so cool. And I've now gone back just myself. Actually last year I went, and I had texted Vanessa because I was like, hey, I randomly was off and I wanted to just drive here. Is this where it's at? And she was like, yeah. She's like, are you? And I'm like, yeah, I'm going. Like, I just wanted to go back. I've been wanting to go back for a while. And I don't know, it was just a good time to just go and experience it again. But yeah, I would have never known about it if I wouldn't have done this. So yeah, I think that was probably my favorite day on set too, was West Virginia. And then the waterfall scene was fun though too. But yeah, trying to find the waterfall was a whole different thing. We climbed around so many different things that we probably weren't supposed to go climb around.
They put up barriers. What I was hinting at is in 2016 or 17, when I went there was no barriers. Now there were barriers. So we may have,
So it's a little guerrilla filmmaking.
A little bit, yeah.
No, I mean,
we may have broken
that's
some rules, but
you're an independent filmmaker when you have to do something like that. So it's common filming when you're not supposed to or something like that. It's whatever. It's not like it's going to come back and get you now. So that was very, like, the waterfall scene was great, very beautifully shot. Zach did an amazing job.
Zach's
He really
phenomenal.
did. The mountain scenes were great. We actually saw 2 separate scenes, the ending and the one scene together. Because wasn't that the same mountain at the end? I'm not giving the ending away, but I'm just saying, was that the same?
There's only one mountain scene, and it's at the end. I was actually going to ask you if we're giving spoilers away or not, but it sounds like we're not.
No.
So.
No.
But there's
Wasn't
only
there
one
another
mountain.
scene with you? Wasn't there, what scene was it with you and Jake together when you guys were in West Virginia? Because there was a sign. I swear it was.
No, it was just Jake, but I feel like we're giving that away. Maybe cut that out.
It's fine. It's fine. That still doesn't give the ending away. So yeah, that's very cool. You did a lot of cool things. You had like you said, the tattoo shop was cool. The hole in the owl, which I know how much that meant to you.
That's the reason why I wrote the movie.
I'm sure it was. That's the thing, because you did all this stuff. Jake did all this stuff for Allie. I'm like, that's why he got this concert tickets, which that was really cool how you shot that. I know how you shot that, but it was very cool how you did it. So I'm like, I'm watching it. I see the concert. Where was that at? What was the concert?
Actually, the Bonnaroo scene was shot at 3 different locations.
Yeah.
Okay. What's the 3 locations?
So the most obvious is probably what you're getting at, and that was at what is it called? The Boot Festival, German American Fest.
Was that what that was?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
So that was shot at German American Fest, and then it originally was only supposed to be 2 locations, but the lighting ended up not being good at the second shoot, so we had to reshoot. The 3rd location's hilarious, but I digress. So the 2nd location, we actually went to another physical concert, and that's what the footage is mostly of. And it was a concert at an outdoor amphitheater that was free and open to the community, and it was in Findlay, Ohio, I believe. And that was the long day of shooting. I want to say we didn't get done till like 1 a.m.
Yeah.
And then you had to drive home afterwards. I mean, you probably got home at 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah. That was fine.
Um,
At that time, it was fine. Didn't care.
But yeah, so that was the location, and our close-ups, the dialogue scenes. Unfortunately, the lighting was just too dark, so we had to reshoot that. The third location was literally just straight up shot in Chris Johnson's backyard with Christmas lights.
I knew that. I knew that watching it. But did you have to get permission to shoot at the German American Fest and the concert?
We're gonna cut that question out.
Well, I told you it's not gonna like. It's kind of awkward when you have the camera the size of Zach has, and he's going around. It's whatever. But that's why I think there's a lot of cool things. I even had to look up the concert that you mentioned in the movie. I'm like, is this real? And I looked
No.
it up. Yeah, it is.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're talking about Bonnaroo? Yes, that's
Yeah.
real. It's
I'm
100%
like,
real.
what is that? So I had to look it up. I'm like, okay.
It's
and
in
then I was
Tennessee.
like, yeah. So I'm like, that's why I was kind of thinking, because Jake was doing all this stuff. First, he did seem like a stalker at the beginning. He really did see her at the library and stuff. So I'm like, okay, it's like Vanessa lied to me. This movie's going a very different turn.
So that's where you said that he reminds you of the You character.
Yes, he did. He had that smile. I
I know there's a
Joe,
drinking
if
game
you
for
ever
sport
do
worth living.
if you ever do a character like that, I think you'll be absolutely perfect for her.
Thank you, because people have told me that too. They're like, you remind me of Joe from You. I said, what? Why? They're like, I don't know. I said, that I don't know. I don't take that as a compliment at all. He is a terrible human being.
He
He
would
is,
be good
but
at it.
it's a great character.
It is a great character, yeah.
So yeah, I think you can do something like very similar to that. I mean, Never Again were very good at that role, and you weren't you-ish, but yeah, I mean, you weren't a great guy in that one either.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's the thing. Like, how did Vanessa? I know you said in December of 2017 is when, or January 2017, you started kind of putting pen to paper for the script. So, but you released it officially in 2020 with
It's a
your
great
theater
time
run.
with editing. Looking back, if I would have known COVID was going to be a thing, I would have started much more in advance, and I would have, applied for film festivals in late 2019 and whatnot. But it is what it is. I felt like 2020 would have been like, I mean, as everyone, expected, like, boom, it's a new decade, and but we all know how that went. So
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, it did very well for being COVID,
even
and
with
you
the
got
challenges, yeah.
you honestly had the very first premiere, which is going on 2 years.
February 24th, yeah.
Going on 2 years at the Chinese Theater, which is an accomplishment in itself. And that's why I said I still meet it in even in my Instagram post. I'm like, or Facebook. I said it somewhere that this is literally probably the best Toledo movie that's ever been released, and I don't see how it can be topped. I honestly can't, because how many film festivals? 11. I might be lowering that.
I think it's 15, and that's not including semifinalists or
Right.
Yeah. It's screened at, I think it's 15. I looked at it yesterday because I was preparing distribution emails.
Yeah, so that's 15 festivals. You're obviously your premiere at Hollywood, and then what movie was premiering at the same time as yours? Oh, we talked about this too when you were down here.
The remake one. It has Elizabeth Moss in it.
Invisible Man.
Invisible Man, yeah.
Is Invisible Man.
I think it was Invisible Man.
Yes.
Yeah, it was. We
so
looked
cool
that up.
seeing
We
the red
looked that up.
carpet up and everything. Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, so I mean, this was before COVID. Well, before quarantine.
Before the lockdowns, yeah. So
Um,
we didn't wear a mask, but there were, I mean, mask wasn't really a thing then, but you saw a couple masks in at the airport when we were
Mhm.
flying out there. But overall, I mean, COVID wasn't really an issue then.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's been the down force of the movie. You kind of, because that's a very good starting point, is debuting in Hollywood.
Mhm.
And then you pretty much was about 3 festivals overseas.
Italy, Germany, and then Greece, and it was a semifinalist in. Oh no, and then another one in Germany. Yeah, I want to say it was 3.
3.
There's 5 more in the festival circuit. It's just, I think there's like one in March. There's a couple in the spring, and we're just waiting to hear back. But
Yeah.
overall, we're ready to sign a distribution.
Yeah, get that out of your hands.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
That's why it's like, it honestly deserves everything it's getting. This is such a good movie. I highly recommend watching this movie. I wanted to watch it again, but timing, took away from last night. It's fine. So you took a lot of time editing. When did you film this?
2018, and then
Yeah, I was like, there was a little bit of 2019 as well.
we're like, it's the movie that never ends. We filmed it predominantly from about mid-May till the very last day in September 30th was the last day. Then I have a meeting with Zach and Chris, who was the director of cinematography, and then the sound engineer for the movie. And we go out to lunch one Sunday afternoon, and I want to say it was in December because it was before January. And they're telling me, they're like, hey, like, look, now that we know what a story worth living is, because they went into it not reading the script, having no idea what they were shooting day in and day out. But now that, they put the pieces together and really saw what the movie was, they came back at me and they're like, look, we really think we need to add 2 more scenes to the movie. And I'm like, guys, it is already like a 57, 58 scene movie. And granted, it's very fast paced. The longest scene is 4 minutes. The shortest scene is like 20 seconds. I mean, like, it's very fast paced. But overall, though, yeah, it's still a hefty movie. I mean, lots of scenes means lots of shoot days. And with that being said, though, but they're like, no, we really think it's important. So I immediately, mid-conversation, I whip up my phone. And again, as Joe said, I started out, don't hate me. But I'm with Zach and Chris right now, and they really want to add 2 scenes to the movie. And they've explained the value in them. And I'm like, you know what? I'm starting to envision it as well. And I'm like, if we can pull this off, would you be interested? And he's like, I'm game.
Yeah. So did they were they watching the edits? Did they at the time to like actually have this idea for the scene?
No, but they just saw the significance and the value in the scene. And if I can share with you which scenes it is, if they are
they
if you want
spoilers?
to edit it out. Yeah, I was to say you would have to edit.
You can tell me later, because I'm kind of curious too.
Mm.
I don't want, because I want this to get people to watch the movie. I don't want to give out spoilers.
Gotcha.
Is it because you know what my favorite scene was? Is it that scene?
No, that was. Ooh, I should tell you what the original script had.
Go ahead.
Well, I feel like that would be giving it away though. But I mean, it's slightly different from that scene, but that was originally not the scene that you liked.
Okay. Well, I can tell. Go ahead.
And Joe, ever since the cast had the scripts, it's always been in the script. So Joe didn't even know the original. But there's a nod to it in the trailer, because if people can pick out that 2-second, clip, then they could be like, hey, that wasn't in the movie. That was a nod to the original script.
Right.
But with that being said, when we shot the 2 scenes, it was back-to-back weekends in January, and we lucked out. A Story Worth Living is a summer movie. And I'm like, Joe, even if it's 20 degrees outside with 12 inches of snow, you have to wear shorts.
Yep.
But thankfully, it was 55 degrees, blue skies and sunny. So that's Ohio for you.
Yeah, and then it slapped you in the face with COVID. So at least you weren't filming. At least you weren't filming during COVID. That would have
That's true. Yeah.
put a big halt on the production. But I'll just say, since the scene I love, isn't a spoilery, but I'll just let Joe know. Joe, like when I told Vanessa, like my favorite scene was that kind of was like the most heartbreaking scene, in my opinion, is when she's calling Jake. She's calling Melissa. She's calling her mom. She's calling, then she called her stepdad. And then it was voicemail, voicemail, voicemail. And then picked up the one person she did not actually want to talk to. And I just thought that was like, I just thought it was such a powerful scene. And I just absolutely love that. That's my favorite scene in the whole movie. I just wanted to let you know that one. I think that was just such a great scene. That's why I kind of wondered if that was a scene that they suggested to, because I'm very curious on that now. I just don't want to give out spoilers, but I'm very curious on that now. So you filmed in 2018. When did you start filming?
I think it was May 10th. Everything about the movie is like it's the 10th of whatever of each month was kind of significant, because I feel like we started on May 10th. I forget all the reasons why, but the 10th was because mostly it was World Mental Health Day is October 10th. So I think I really centered around that, and plus we started filming on the 10th, so I think it had to do with that significant.
Yeah, because you released the trailer, I believe, on October 10th.
Mm-hmm.
And then you did everything you released was like, your marketing was awesome. Everything you released had a significance of that day. Like you had the was it Suicide Prevention Day?
September 10th. That's another 10th one. Yeah, September 10th. That's National Suicide Prevention Day.
Yeah, so.
And that was the soundtrack of the movie, which we left out one song that was on Spotify, but I didn't want to put on the soundtrack because I felt like it gave away the movie. But I noticed a lot of people at the premiere, they picked up on that. They definitely said, "Hey, how did you get this band? That's amazing." So,
how did you get the bands?
Brady.
Your husband?
Yeah, so my husband is a touring musician, and so he knows the music industry quite well. Fun fact, though, a lot of the songs in A Story Worth Living were outdated. Like we're talking like over 10 years old, and so a lot of the bands, Wilderness of Toccoa, I think that's what they're called. I don't even think Further Seems Forever is around. And correct me if I'm wrong, I don't even think Starflyer 59 is around. I don't know, but they were really big bands back in the day. So yeah, I mean, Brady knew either he was friends with, a various whatever bandmate, whatever, in the various bands on Facebook, message them, hey, my wife's doing a movie. Can she use this song in the movie? We have permission that way. The one song that I had to hunt down, talk about you, was for my favorite band, Foster the People. I've seen them multiple times. I just love them so much. And they came to Detroit, and they played, I think it was when they toured with Paramore. I left Paramore's concert early because I knew Foster the People. I was following them on social media, and I knew that they were going to have an after party, an after show. And what that meant was they just find a really tiny dive bar, and they go and play punk rock tunes. Like, it's not their sound at all, but it's really fun. So thankfully they posted where they were going, and I'm like, the person I went to the concert with, and I said, are you okay with leaving Paramore? And thankfully they're like, yeah, let's go. So I'm like, cool. So I went to their show, and afterwards I started talking to, he does both drums and keys. But I thought it was really cool that I was speaking to him. His name is Isom Innes, and his wife is Carlson Young. She's best known for the Scream series, MTV Scream series movies. And so I've talked to Mark Foster before. I've hung out with him in a bar actually in Cleveland. But I think it was really cool that I was able to actually speak to Isom Young, Isom Young, oh my gosh, Isom Innes, bless you, because his wife is a filmmaker, and essentially, even though she's done SAG work and the Hollywood work, she's still an independent filmmaker, and she actually just came out with her first feature. I want to say it was last year. So I forget what it's called, but yeah, Blazing Worlds, I think. But anyways, so yeah, I think it was really cool because I told him, you know, hi, my name is Vanessa, big fan of yours, been seeing you, you know, I met you a couple of times. It's embarrassing. But anyways, and of course they did the whole, oh yeah, I remember you. I'm like, it's okay. Thanks for the flattery. But anyways, or maybe they did. They're like, oh my gosh, not this girl again. No, I'm kidding. My husband's in band, so I can't really fangirl that much. Like I have conversations with them. They put on pants just like I do. Like, you know, they're normal people. But anyways. So anyways, I was talking to him, told him I'm a filmmaker and I would love to use their song 3 in the movie. And he's like, yeah, can I have your phone? I'm like, yeah. So he opened up a notepad and he's like, hey, this is our manager. Like, you know, this is his email, contact him. So I want to say that was end of June 2018. So this was like in the midst of filming. I sat on it for 3 months because I'm just like, look, it's the music industry. They're not going to get back to me, or they're going to say no, or they're going to say, yeah, absolutely, for $3,000. And I'm like, it's like 30 seconds of the, you know, clip, but whatever. Sure enough, I reached out about 3 months later, just because, again, I just sat on it because I was just really hesitant about all of it, and got a response like right away. And he's like, yeah, send me the footage. I want to see what you want to use it for. So I sent him this footage without sound. And I said, hey, like, it's the end of the movie. This is what I would like to use it for. And he didn't respond like for like 2 weeks. So I'm just like, ah, crap. Like, do I follow up? So sure enough, I'm like, you know what, whatever, it is what it is. I'm going to send one more follow-up email. And I sent it, and I'm like, hey, just, you know, kind of circling back. I know you're busy, but I just wanted to, you know, ask if you reviewed the footage and if, you know, if we could use the song in the soundtrack. And again, right away, yes, absolutely. Just let us know when you sign distribution. So I'm like, cool.
Joe, what was probably the hardest part about filming with your character?
Hardest part about filming, at least for the role of Jake, was probably just he's very laid back, kind of easygoing, and I am not. I don't know how to now I'm learning how to relax, but at the time I did not know how to relax. I was always like, okay, let's do this, let's go. And he's like that, but he's like, yeah, you know what, everything's fine, it's all good. That's not me. I'm not the dog that's around the fire, the one meme. And that's what I feel like he'd be. He'd just be like, yeah, everything's good. It's not a big deal. I'm not that way. So that was probably at least kind of difficult to always get into that mindset. It was kind of like, you normally would just take a deep breath, and that's kind of what I had to do anyway, just to be like, just relax. This is this character. This is what you have to do. And that was probably the most difficult to at least get into that mindset.
Yeah, I could see that because, like I said, Jake's way too good to be true. And that's, you know, that's the fantasy of filmmaking, is doing stuff like that. Did you have any? I know you have a very long history of movies, a lot of short movies. Well, this was not your first feature, right?
No, not my first feature. It was my first lead in a feature.
Okay. That's okay. So you actually get it up. So added pressure for that?
Yeah, I think it was added pressure because obviously it's a lot more time consuming than two, just because it is a feature length film, shooting long days, going, you know, from May until, well, January. And yeah, I think that pressure too of just being like, you know, you are a focus in this film. Are you going to be able to captivate and actually like keep the character the same way every time? Because we did also have gaps in filming too. So it's like, okay, how would I play this then? Is this how Jake would do it? Is this how Jake would have done it, compared to the scene that is previous? So that was also just very difficult too. Because in some scenes you may notice as you're watching that my hair is different, kind of like I have different lengths of hair. And so
Timed it out.
we
You
tried to
timed
time
it
it out because I think it was like the very first day, the very first scene we shot, at least that I shot, was when Jake and Allie went to see her mom and stepdad. And so I remember I was like, okay, this is my haircut. This is how it's going to be. And I remember I'm like, I couldn't get it the same way any other time. But like the way that it times out, I think it works really well because that part was really short, like so longer. But
And really short again. But if you pay attention to where that is in the movie, I'm like, oh, it kind of makes sense. So.
Yeah, like go and get a haircut. So it did work out really well, but I know that was a weird struggle that I'm like, how am I going to keep my hair the same length?
Yeah,
Trust me.
because I'm like, well, the excuse was Jake got a haircut to look good for Allie.
Yeah.
Okay, because I don't know if you saw New Blood Rising. That the very first movie, the second movie that I worked with Vanessa, that I was in it, not by choice, but earlier scene I had shaved hair. Later in the scene I had, which is the same day, my hair grew. And it's like, it's a joke that I make. I'm like, it's because it just happens, but it's as a guy, it's horrible because our hair grows so fast and different, and it's very hard to get the same. Like Vanessa, besides the color change, I think you were on point with your hair throughout the movie.
Yeah, I don't. That was a weird thing that I was like, just because since it is an independent film, there's not a hair and makeup department that's working to do any of that. So it's like we had to also be like, hey, is this gonna look right? Continuity was a huge thing that we always talked about too, to try and keep it.
We always took pictures if we knew that we had to do a reshoot, or even if we didn't. Like we always prepared. Like I wore different jewelry, earrings. I mean, even nail polish. I'm like, I'm taking pictures of everything because I'm like, okay, this needs to match up. I will say this though, there was one scene which I don't know if you know this, Joe, but it's not that big of a deal. But I didn't like my line delivery in it was the first scene that you and I met. It was the meeting of the parents. There was one line that I didn't deliver emotionally enough. I'm like, oh, I could do better. So we ended up reshooting just that one line. And obviously, Joe, you didn't have to be there. But we went back like a month later and my hair is definitely longer. But I mean, honestly, I don't think people can pick that up.
No, I didn't even notice. Now I'm going to have to go back and look and be like, this is
right.
Different.
So actually, because you mentioned real quick that there were gaps in shooting, I want to say, I'm sorry, I don't mean to sound like a creep, but like this is how my brain works. I want to say that the shooting of the scene with the parents was on May 20th or May 23rd. It was one of them. Notice how I always get really close. I'm like, it's either or, it's 50-50. But anyways, so I remember it being one of those days. And then I didn't see you until like mid-July.
Yeah, because most of what I shot, I think, was July, August, and September. It was mainly the summer. But yeah, I only shot that one scene and that was it.
And I'm like, see you in 2 months.
Yeah, see you in 2 months. Like, all right, cool.
I wanted to get all the boring house scenes out of the way. So
yeah, I mean that makes sense. Like if he's not in the scene, just get his stuff out.
Yeah.
That was kind of a thing. What in the script? What is the time frame in this? Because it seems like it does jump for like you have the introduction between Jake and Allie in the class where Jake shows up late. You have him and me at the park bench, and then obviously he stalks her at the library. So what was like, and then they start, he starts helping her with her list or her projects, which was honestly, Vanessa, that was like the easiest school project any student could ever get.
That was so cheesy too. Like, oh my gosh, he randomly knows this Longfellow's poem.
Yeah.
That was like the one like really cheesy factor.
I feel like that was the point of it, it was allowed to be cheesy. It was supposed to be cheesy. So it was,
Yeah, it fit.
Yeah.
But
Um,
what was like the time frame from in the movie from start to finish? Because Jake's doing all this stuff. Obviously, you guys start dating. Well, it's never officially that you guys are dating. He doesn't like ask you out and like to be
Just for
girlfriend. Yeah. So what is the time frame? Because you're watching the movie and he goes, check your email, and then you got the concert tickets. It's like it, but it seems like it's maybe in like the same in like a week or two. But realistically,
No.
what was it?
So essentially it's pretty accurate to the months that we shot. I mean, realistically, I envisioned like Allie and Jake meeting like last week of April. I want to say college semester typically ends first week of May, second week of May, something like that. Bonner, I think, typically happens in June. The parents meeting, I want to say that was like kind of supposed to be considered around the 4th of July without actually mentioning the 4th of July. Because that's about the halfway point of the movie is meeting the parents. Not time frame wise, but when it comes to the scenes, 60 scenes again. Yeah, I want to say it was probably end of April to one of the scenes that I cannot discuss right now. There's only one date. I don't even know if there's a date in the email. That was a fake email that I made up with a marketing program, by the way, from Bonner. But I don't know if a date is listed in that email. And we were very conscientious of shooting around calendars. So whenever, shot in the back or make sure it was flipped to the right month that it was supposed to be in type thing. There's only one date that you can see in the movie. And looking back, I'm like, man, I wish I would have I think I made that a 2019, but man, I'm like, I should have made that 2020, 2021. But just thinking ahead or whatnot, that's just not something that, you really planned for. But yeah, essentially, end of April to probably about end of August, early September is probably the guideline. So, Allie was very quick with I love you, but
Yeah.
but it's a movie. It's allowed to happen.
Yeah, it's in movie time, so everything's really fast.
I was just curious. Could you see that in like a lot of the romance movies that the boyfriend does something, out of this world within like 2 weeks of dating them? That's why I was just wondering. I was like watching that. I'm like, how long have they been dating? I don't know, because I didn't pick up the date. You're right, because I don't think about it. I don't remember seeing any type of time frame or season or holiday or anything like that.
Can I also share another fun fact about the movie?
Yes.
Jake and Melissa never meet. It's just understood that, like, it's literally up to the viewer interpretation. It's just understood that they know each other. They exchanged phone numbers at one time because they're texting one another. They never meet until, I shouldn't say meet. It's just understood that they meet. They're never on screen. They're never on screen until towards the end of the movie. It's hilarious. Like, Melissa was there for a couple shoot dates that Joe shot. She went to the waterfall scene with us. It was a thing that I'm like, hey, like, all of your scenes are boring. You're literally just drinking wine and PJs. Like, do you want to go to the waterfall scene? And she's like, absolutely. So I felt bad, but she had the bar scene actually that Joe said that he was pretty jealous that he wasn't part of.
Yeah, I did want to be part of that scene. That just seemed like fun.
It was fun. There was no alcohol on set. Like it was crazy fun.
At a bar, there's no alcohol on set. I know. What's funny is that scene, your drunken scene. It reminded me of the drunken scene in Talk Nerdy to Me. That's kind of wonder if you kind of mirrored it a little bit.
I didn't even think of that, but yeah, Heather, my character Heather, did get really drunk and Talk Nerdy to Me.
Well, I'm going with like Spring's character with her on the table and stuff.
Oh yeah, she got wild.
Yeah, so it kind of mirrored.
I didn't even think of that, but yeah. That was an added scene. Again, that was a scene that was always in the script for when Joe had it. but that wasn't in the original.
Yeah.
My friend at the time, who was kind of helping me clean up the script, she suggested saying, hey, I really think you need to portray Allie in a much more, what's the word I'm looking for? Detrimental, sporadic, unexpected type of way. If she is manic, you really want to portray that. And if she's never really drank alcohol, I mean, let her have at it, you know? So
Yes.
in a very unhealthy way, don't get me wrong. But yeah, so that was not in the original script.
Wait, oh, that's right. She never did drink alcohol, now that I think about it, because she was on those pills.
It was on medication.
Right. One quick question that just popped in my head. Was this always the plan about the insurance issue, with the kind of what's modern day insurance issues, that you can't afford medicine without insurance type of thing? Was that always kind of a point in the movie?
It was. I took that actually from a personal experience. My goal was not to be political in any way. I know with the culture and the polarization that we see today, that was not made to be political. I know a lot of times people viewing it could politicize that. That was not my intention. But personally, from my own experience, I want to say it was 10 years ago, I was a part-time radio DJ. And I remember that I was signed on to staff, even though I only worked like maybe once, twice a month. I mean, it was very part-time. But with that being said, I want to say, I don't know what the law was. I don't know what the regulation was, but I do remember them coming out with some sort of email saying, we need to downsize our staff to 20 people because there's some sort of new law being passed that if you have more than 20, you need to have health insurance or something like that. And again, 10, 12 years ago, health insurance wasn't as big of a conversation as it is nowadays. But I kind of just drew on that from that memory that I had. And again, it's kind of fuzzy, but I do remember something vaguely of that nature. A very part-time job had, and even then, I want to say there was like 25, 23 people on staff. So I want to say like 3 people either had to quit or downsize to like a volunteer or something. I don't know exactly. I don't remember. It was 12 years ago, 10 years ago, something like that. But that's essentially where the health insurance topic came from in the movie. Now, with that being said, being off medication wasn't even that technically the biggest downfall for Allie, because technically medication is pretty affordable. It's the psychologist, it's the psychologist appointments that are very expensive. So it's really that was the downfall, I think, of Allie, because she wasn't able to continue to seek help. Because I don't know, I don't want to get too preachy with mental illness, but
Yeah.
Recovery is there if you're willing to put in the work, is what my psychiatrist used to tell me. There's no happy pill. You're never going to wake up and just automatically be happy. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of self-love and self confidence and everything in yourself to really get better. It takes a lot of work, and is what I'm trying to get at. And so with that being said, the coping, the coping skills, and just talking through her problems, I think the psychiatrist or the psychologist not going to her appointments was really the downfall, as opposed to medication.
Right.
You can
Joe,
cut that out if you want.
What's that?
I said you could cut that out if you want. And like, again, I don't want to be an advocate for mental health.
Stop telling me to cut stuff out. It's going to be very hard to cut stuff out on
This hour conversation is going to be 20 minutes.
It's going to be very hard to edit this stuff out. Joe, what is the kind of message that you would like to see this movie kind of expand to the world?
I'd say that I'd like people to at least know that you're not alone if you are going through anything that is anything with mental illness, any sort of depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, but to seek help. Always go and seek help when you know something's wrong. But that's kind of the main message, as we've already pointed out to, over the last 10 years, the growth of awareness of, mental health issues has just, really been put at the forefront compared to what it was 10 years ago. So I think it's still nice to just kind of have that reminder of, you're not alone. There are so many resources out there for anyone to go and seek help to, if you are struggling, if anything is going on. So I think that's just kind of always been the message that I always took from it. Because at least in my family, depression does run in my family too. And so that was another reason why it was at least something I wanted to be a part of, telling a story that involves someone that was, struggling with mental illness and trying to get to a point where, you need to seek help. You need to, talk about it.
When Vanessa approached you with the movie about auditioning, and did she straight up tell you it was a mental health movie?
I don't remember. I think you did. I think you just kind of said a little bit about it. That it was about a girl named Allie who, does suffer from mental illness, some sort of mood disorders, and, just that she does meet this guy, and, just things happen, because obviously she's not going to spoil the movie for me as well at the time, because I didn't know if I was going to get cast. But yeah, I would say like she at least mentioned that. And so and she did say a lot of the time, with anything that's being depicted in movies now, at least it's always horror, suspense, thriller. And she'd said like, no, I want to actually portray this in a romantic, drama. And so I think it was just a lot of different things that, that I wanted to be a part of, things that I wanted to try, and just something that was different. And so I was like, yeah, I want to, sign me up.
Was it kind of like an interesting tackle to do something like of this nature for you?
Yeah, it was interesting just because, the character of Jake, obviously he doesn't know until later on that she does suffer from mental illness. And, as somebody who has experience of, handling some people with mental illness, again, I, like Vanessa, am not an advocate. I don't have the full information on what to do, or, just besides to go and reach out to anybody who is a professional. But I guess I have some of that background of just talking to people about any sort of mental health issues that they might have. So I think that was always kind of just an interesting tackle of it too, to really actually have someone who is, you're in a relationship with, that actually is like, no, I'm opening up about this. This is kind of my life, and how the character of Jake would react to it. So it was an interesting tackle, I would say, to just kind of manage that.
So this goes out to both of you. What is the best and worst story that you've had on set? Because you're gonna have good and bad times on set.
Oh, okay. So you're talking about
What's one of your good and bad experiences on set? Joe, I can say it's probably your driving.
No, that's it. Yeah, it was just, at first it was great, and then I think it was towards the end where I'm like, okay, I just got to suffer through it. I just got to do it. But yeah, it was the driving was the only thing for me that was really bad. Everything else I've always really liked.
Because I'm not gonna lie, the drive to Cleveland is not the greatest drive. It is, because Vanessa and I did that once, and that's even with two people, it's still kind of a boring drive.
It's a boring drive, yeah.
And with one person, I can only imagine.
Oh, I had to cycle through all kinds of different music, anything I could listen to just be like, okay, what am I in the mood for today?
Right. But what about good? What about like your favorite experience?
Favorite experience. Now, are you talking about like any set at all, or just on A Story Worth Living?
Story Worth Living.
Okay, that's what I thought. It would have to be the West Virginia, going to the mountain. That had to have been the best experience. One, because it was just it was that feeling of just like a bunch of people working on an independent film, traveling in a car, going all the way down, hiking up this incredible view. To even experience that was just a lot of fun. And then just the scene itself, I mean, we can't talk too much about, but it was just fun to shoot in general. But that was just the best experience because that was the time I think we found a snake, I think, too. Copperhead snake, yeah. So I'm like, no, I'm not afraid of snakes, but I'm like, I don't need to go near them. Like, it's fine. But yeah, I think it was just an overall just fun time because we all were just kind of, most of us were there experiencing it for the first time. And it was just really cool. And Vanessa's like, yeah, I've been saying this, like, this is an amazing view. So yeah, that was my favorite part of shooting it, I would say.
We were hoping to see a bear too, but we never did.
I did. Yeah, I did want to see a bear. I thought that would have been fun. And then even when I went back the last time, I was like, I didn't see anything. And I was like, dang, one of these times.
Speaking of that, Vanessa, did you tell Joe what we saw in Florida?
Oh my gosh, Joe.
What? What did you
I was making fun. There was signs everywhere in Florida, in Central Florida, which is like the Midwest of Florida, if you've ever been to Central Florida.
It is.
But anyways, so you're around the swampy tropical trees, but then you see all these bear signs. And I'm just like, there's no bears here. This is ridiculous. Like, are you kidding me? This is Florida. It's not the first state that you think of, oh, gonna see a bear.
No, I didn't.
Literally 5 minutes later, friggin' black bear crossing the road. I'm trying to whip out my phone, but it had the map on and it was locked and I wasn't able to get a picture. But I'm like, are you kidding me? There's a bear. And I mean, I've been to Tennessee and I've seen tons of bears before and up in the UP too, but not in Florida. That was
No,
the first.
Florida, I just think of alligators. That's what I was thinking. Alligators.
I've been down here almost 4 years. I haven't seen an alligator. But I'm like, I'm just driving and Vanessa like puts her hand in front of my face. I'm like, look, a bear. I'm like, what? And I'm already past it and I see it crossing the road and she's about to take a picture. I'm like, Vanessa, don't, because this is a major highway and cars are going like 60. Don't get a bear accident on camera.
Yeah, I was like, oh yeah, that'll be all over the internet.
But it was like it was a younger
Florida
bear.
man.
Yeah.
It was a younger bear, so it was really cool. Like we saw a sign every 2 miles.
Yeah, it was ridiculous the amount of bear signs, and that's what I was laughing at. I'm like, there's no bears in Florida. Get me wrong.
It was very cool seeing that going, and then we were trying to see like, okay, was this the spot? No, it was past this gas station, and we're like trying to see if we could see the bear again. Yeah, it was a fun thing. But Vanessa, what was your good and bad experiences on set? Because obviously you wore multiple hats: director, writer, lead, obviously editor, producer, everything. So you have more eyes through it. But you could say it could be a directing experience, or an acting experience. What was the good and bad experience on set?
Well, two scenes come to mind. The Bonner scene, that literally 20-second clip of Jake and Allie in the backyard, that we shot that for hours, and it was probably 48 degrees outside. We were trying not to hide our breath. It was really hard to see the camera work. So, because at the time, Zach didn't have a mobile portable screen to look at. So he was really just looking at the screen that was on his camera. So like the angles were off, and because again, we're surrounded by pitch blackness. So like, it was really hard to see where things were cut off. But yeah, it was, that was a challenging 20-second clip, and it took hours to shoot. Plus it was cold, like I said. Another scene that came to mind was the owl scene. To be honest, the owl location in itself was the very first scene that I confirmed in January 2018. And not to give it away, but the people, the local place that I contacted in the Toledo area, Michigan area, they were super on board. They're like, oh my gosh, this is great. Yeah, we're so excited. We will absolutely, give you a keeper, to do the owl scene. That sounds great. We're really excited. And I'm like, okay, great. We're probably going to shoot this in July, August. Like, I'll reach out to you when we're ready to shoot. Probably, how many weeks in advance do you need to know? And they said probably 2 weeks. So I want to say I reached out to them about 3 weeks to a month, just giving them that extra leeway. They ghosted me. They did not respond to any of my emails. They weren't responding to my phone calls, my voice messages. So eventually I drove up there. It's about 20 minutes away. But I drove there and I was trying to meet with the owner, and he just was not having it. Like, he did not want to talk to me. He did not want to show his face. And I'm just like, immediately, I'm like, oh my gosh, if I don't have this owl scene, we're going to have to either reshoot scenes, because we already filmed this dialogue scenes about the owl, which there's at least 3. There's the one with, Jake at the school, which that would obviously cost money. And not to mention, it was, during school time. We shot that in the summer when no one really does summer classes. But we would have to go back there, to shoot it during the semester. So that would have sucked. So either we go back and reshoot all this stuff, taking the owl stuff out, or you just friggin' make it happen. And I got on the phone and made calls, looked up, various places, and I finally found a place in Columbus. And it was not in budget, but I'm like, it's either wasting people's time to do it again, or you just write the check. And so yeah, we shot it. It was a very cold September day, actually. We were still in shorts, but it was 50 degrees, 50 degrees and sunny. But yeah.
People can wear jeans in the summer, Vanessa.
I know, that's true. Whatever. But yeah, that was really, I was grasping at straws. I was doing anything I could, because we originally had it planned to shoot in August. And then by the time that we shot that film, I want to say it was the end of September. I mean, that shows you just how much like I was trying to make that work. So yeah, it was disappointing, but I'm really like that the original fell through, ended up not, carrying on with their commitment. But at the same time, no, I'm really grateful that we were able to pull it off.
Yeah, that was cool. Because I even wondered, because I knew about the scenes. I knew because I saw the pictures. I'm like, oh, Vanessa finally got the hold now. I know how happy she is. Because Joe, I'm not gonna lie, the first 10 seconds of the movie, I'm like, oh, you have to throw an owl into the movie. And then
like,
I didn't know it was in
that's
the
not
movie or
all.
not. I did not know. And I'm like, because you saw a little owl clip in the first 10 seconds of the movie. And she goes, oh, there's a bunch of Easter eggs in the movie, so be prepared. I didn't catch everything, but so that I knew how important that was for you, as also for obviously what you said in the movie, and also as personal, because that was your first time holding that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know
probably my last too.
probably your last. One of the things I thought was funny, I think it was the rolling down the hill scene, and I'm watching Vanessa. I'm like, where are her tattoos? Like, where are they? And then I'm like, then you go to the tattoo shop and it's like you're talking about the permanent ink. And I'm like, oh, I get it now. So I'm like, I like how you did that stuff, because I know Vanessa has tattoos in the weirdest spots, and I give her crap about that all the time. And I'm like, oh, okay, I like that. So I was like, it was different. So that was like an Easter egg, I guess, so to speak, for how I know her. But Joe, what was your initial reaction to the final? Because obviously you weren't there with Vanessa editing. I don't know if she was sending you clips.
She was, yeah. She would send me stuff because she's like, hey, what does this look like? That's one of the why I love doing this, was because it was collaborative, and she was just like, I need your eye on this too. What do you think this looks like? Is this? So there were times I think I did go through just to help something with sound, I think, maybe.
Yeah, I think you and I actually gave you credit for like just helping in editing, just to fine tune and pick out anything that I wasn't seeing.
But yeah.
So what was your initial reaction to the completed movie when you first finally saw it? I know it's probably during like a commentary track, or if you just saw it, if she sent it to you for an opinion. What was your initial thought of the completed?
I want to say the first time I did fully see it was, it might have been the commentary track, or you might have sent it to me beforehand. And I remember I was like, I didn't want anyone else around, obviously, but I was like, okay, like I'm home alone. Like I can actually like shut the door. I can watch this and just be fully engaged. And already at least I tried to forego watching myself because I hate watching myself. I'm one of those people I can't watch. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to have to let it go, whatever. And I was like, holy shit, this is really good. This is holy crap. Like you find it's from being in the very beginning of coming to just go and shoot just the very first scene and piecing these scenes together just as months and months have gone on to be like, this is really good. This looks really good. And I was just, it made me feel really happy to just be a part of it. Then I was like, I'm so excited for all of the hours I drove. And I'm so excited just to say like, I did this. I was a part of this. Obviously Vanessa wore so many hats. I don't know how you managed to do it. Just
I'm probably never going to do that again.
I give you full props just for everything you did. Like that's what anytime anybody asked me about it, I was like, yeah, I did this, but did you know that Vanessa starred, directed, wrote, produced, edited everything? Like, let's focus on that.
Yeah.
I want to say the first clips I was able to edit together, which makes sense because it's the first scenes that we shot, was the 3 back-to-back scenes with parents, the Jake meeting Allie's parents. So I filmed those together, or I edited those together, and that was like the first sequence. And I remember showing it to a friend that was the makeup artist, or it was supposed to be the makeup artist. So she actually read the script and she was like blown away by it. But yeah, so she watched it and she's like, holy crap, this looks like a legit movie. And so that was really cool. And then also I remember the scene that I sent you, Joe, was when Allie, it was actually the first emotional scene. It was when Allie was sharing with Jake about her mental illness. And it was very emotional and just her past and different things. And I was even blown away with how that came out. And I remember sending that to you just because I was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Like it was cut together so well. And I was like, and just from that rough edit, you're like, yeah, I'm just piecing this together. Like this is what I've got so far. And I'm like, oh, this is just like what's cut. Oh, okay. I'm not worried then. I was like, this is great. I'm not worried, but it was just so much fun to be able to say like, yeah, I spent a lot of time just traveling, but the amount of work that you did, it really worked out very well.
Yeah.
So that was Vanessa, this is your first directed feature. I know you've done 3 shorts.
Directing. I think I've done
Directing.
2.
2.
One's still in post.
Well, one,
I'm not editing that. That's out of my hands.
You did do that Twilight short.
That was
so that's the second one, and there's another one too, wasn't there?
I don't remember another one, to be honest.
Maybe unless you're the post one is the one I'm thinking of. I thought I saw it, but
yeah, I want to say spring of March 2017. I think that's when I shot my first, like the Twilight one. I say Twilight, it's a knockoff, but yeah, that one was a silent film.
Yeah,
so
that was for a
just kind of getting my feet wet.
It was a contest, right?
Yeah.
It was for a contest.
Yeah. And then so there was that one, but it was a silent film, and that was like my first, getting my feet wet and editing. And I want to say that came out in October 2015. And then yeah, there was the March 2017. I almost want to say 2020. It just rolls off your tongue, March 2020, because we all know what that means to us. I feel like we all have a little bit of PTSD from it. But
don't bring up that
March 2017 is when I directed I guess a short film. That's still in post, like I said, but it's okay. It'll get there eventually.
Because I know you've been on obviously my sets 3 times. You've been on different directors as well. Like, did you? Because you know that when you were on my set, we obviously went 12 hours, 13 hours, and stuff. Or did you kind of see? And then you worked with the other directors. Did you kind of like being on set that help you with directing on this because you saw the goods and the bads of other directors? Does that kind of help you out with us?
Totally. Because I budgeted, depending on the length of the scene, if it was like a page and a half to 2 pages, I would budget 2 hours to shoot the scene. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but it is. And then obviously if it's like a half a page or a page, I would have, budgeted an hour. But overall, we pretty much kept within that time frame. Obviously, like the one exception, the Bonner scene or something like that, But overall, I was pretty kind of spot on with, if we had 3 or 4 scenes on the schedule for that day. I mean, it was timed out, for 8 to 10 hours, depending.
Right.
And as Joe mentioned, I was very cognizant of his time and, very respectful, knowing that he was doing traveling. And so yeah, I wouldn't schedule him until I knew that, hey, we're ready for you now. So I know one scene, the bookstore scene. Actually, there's 3 scenes, but we obviously shot all of them in one day. And I want to say you showed up a little early, but I mean, it's better to be early than late.
Mhm.
Yeah, overall, we were pretty on schedule.
Was weather ever a factor? Because I think it was just sunny throughout. I don't think it rained in any scene.
No, so we always made tentative shoot days for the one rain scene. Joe, bless his heart. He texts me. He's like, hey, you're doing the rain scene today. Now I'm not in that, right? And I'm like, no, Joe, this is not The Notebook.
I know. I think, yeah, because I think I was looking at the schedule and I was panicking because I'm like, should I be driving up right now? I don't know. I have no idea.
But that was the one scene that that was tricky because obviously in the summer we get a lot of rain, but at the same time it's in and out and it's sunny. So I'm like, crap. So you had to time it out perfectly. So finally it was clear, clearly getting closer to fall, and it was September and it said nothing but rain in the forecast. So I'm like, cool, we're finally going to do the rain scene this Saturday. Ended up not being really a rain scene. It was kind of drizzling, and looking back, I'm like, oh, her hair is way too wet. It's not really raining. And then Chris Johnson was literally, what's the word I'm looking for? Extra or, person walking in the scene a couple times in a couple scenes. But I wish I would have given him an umbrella in that scene just to really play up the fact that it is raining, even though it really wasn't. So there's little things like that I would have done differently. But yeah, I want to say rain was the only factor, and that was because it was for a very specific scene. But like I said, it was a slight mist. So
Joe, this was your first major experience, filming in Toledo. I mean, we did Never Again. We filmed that in 2018, so that was a couple months before filming Sure With Living. What was your impressions of filming in Toledo? Because I know in Cleveland you have this huge scene of filmmakers. All 3 of us know who they all are. Mm-hmm. They're all very talented. What was your impressions of filming in Toledo?
I was really impressed. I think it's a matter of knowing, I knew there was always Cleveland. At least I know Cleveland's a market that we've always had, but not even thinking about, what's on the other side of Ohio. And I think everyone kind of thinks about that just in general with movie making too. Everyone thinks it's always New York and LA or, Atlanta, Chicago, any of these places. And when I just was okay, Toledo has film markets. So I started watching some of this stuff. I'm like, this stuff's, it's just everyone's doing what they need to do to make a movie. And it's everyone was here to just kind of work together. And it's nice to be able to know okay, I can see that in the Toledo market, that everyone just likes to work together. Everyone's trying to do what they need to do. Some days are tougher than others, but hey, we're all here for one purpose. And yeah, it was nice to kind of see that collaborative environment in Toledo, that everyone wears multiple hats. But yeah, I was very impressed.
Yeah, I mean, Vanessa's she's been doing it since 2012. That's actually, I think the time we met Vanessa was 2012. So we've known each other almost 10 years now. and we know the Toledo market, very heart, pretty much driven by heart. That's a very good key. And that's one of the things about this movie is that Vanessa wrote it from her heart. That's one of the beauties of the movie is you can tell how much time, passion was in the script. And especially the characters, Vanessa. Definitely have to compliment you on that, on the character development with Allie and Jake, your parents, because you think when watching the trailer, you think they'll have a bigger impact, and they did not only have a bigger impact, they had a huge impact on the plot for both ways. For the cycle, they start the cycle, not the cycle. So I think that was great. So I think that's like something that for your first feature, I'm like, honestly, where do you go from here now?
I know. Trust me. I will say this though, my editing has gotten so much better, even then from like what you see on the DVD. Like, oh my gosh, there's like still 20 billion things I would change, which Joe knows all about that. But yeah, so where do I go from here? I do have another outline for another feature. I almost gave away a story with the big ending. It's a drama, but like it's just a overall happier movie. Because A Story Worth Living, it's not for the faint of heart. Half of it's, as you mentioned, it's a romantic, drama, or really, and the suspense comes from the second half. And that's, that really tugs at your heartstrings. That's when you see Allie, really struggling with her mental illness and different things. But yeah, so where do I go from here? I mean, if you could believe it, I didn't have an outline for A Story Worth Living. It was just that fluid and that easy to write because I knew exactly what I wanted. For the most part, like I said, we tweaked a couple scenes after I had an initial scene, but I don't really remember having an outline. But my next feature, though, I do have an outline. It's really just making time to sit down and to write. I kind of started, but it's not coming nearly as easily as A Story Worth Living, which is kind of crazy since I have an outline, but it's fine. I think I'm still being pulled in multiple directions. I think a lot of people think I'm resting, and I kind of am, but at the same time, you make a movie and everyone comes out of the woodwork to ask you to help you make their movie. And as much as I want to help everyone, I want to so badly. I want to see everyone succeed. I want to see everyone accomplish their goals. I just don't have the mental or physical capacity. So I'm like, I'm rooting you on from afar. I promise. I wish you all the success. If I can help out, I will. I absolutely will. But yeah, I'm actually about to start working on another editing project. For someone else. I'm about to shoot another project with actually a local therapy group. It's more of like a campaign for him and building a YouTube channel. So I'm very much like still very busy. So I don't know when I'll get around to writing this other feature, but to be honest, I'm okay with taking my time. Like I kind of threw out realistic dates and I want it to be a Christmas/winter movie. So I'm like, yeah, production probably won't start until next December. That's like how far in advance. I'm just not in a big rush right now.
So you have Story Worth Living like here. So as your next feature, are you going to try to top it, or are you trying to just maybe have a level field?
I think in ways, obviously, A Story Worth Living can be improved with just the editing. And like I said, I'm a very detailed person, but there's like still things that like looking back, I'm like, oh, I wish Chris had an umbrella, things like that. And like, it's still those details that really pull the movie together. So yes, I absolutely think you can improve from, A Story Worth Living. At the same time, the next feature that I'm writing, it's not going to have cool ass places. Like it's not going to have a waterfall. It's not going to have mountains. It's not going to have a lakefront, running with the seagulls.
You're just going to simplify it.
Well, it's I mean just that. It's just a different, completely different movie. Like it's not going to be based on mental health. It's going to be very family oriented. Still drama though. Obviously, I'm going to take you up and down with emotions, but it's going to be overall happier though. Um, but yeah, so I don't know.
Um, one last question before I, wrap this up. Was the initial reaction to the movie or the initial process of the movie, was it mental health, always going to be the main focus, and then you expand off that? Or did you just kind of intertwine certain things to tie into it? Like, what was the mental health the starting point?
Yes. So literally, I had meetings with I think Larry Williams. He's another filmmaker in the area, and I remember meeting with him in January 2017. And I'm like, look, I want to have a feature about mental health. Where do I go from there? And so he just really encouraged me. He's like, every story has been told in some aspect or another. Nothing is new under the sun. And it's just really, you really need to dive deep into slightly twisting the perspective, slightly twisting the story in a way that it does look like a fresh perspective. And I'm like, okay. So, but yeah, hopefully that was told with The Store Worth Living.
Joe, what's next for you?
Well, I have a small role in a film coming up in the next couple weeks. Just a couple days shoot. Other than that, it's just kind of getting back into auditioning. Because of everything with COVID, I took a really just nice break from filming. Kind of just trying to figure my life out because 2020 was going to be my year. I was going to take the step forward and move to Georgia. And then obviously everything that happened in 2020 kind of put a pin in that. So I stayed local to the area, and it's kind of just getting back out there is really all it is. So I was like, at least I have this film in the next couple of weeks. I'm still part of It's All Been Done Radio Hour, which is a podcast I've been doing for the last 6 years. That's kind of just like a mix of just a variety of sketches that we've done on and off for that time frame. But other than that, it's just kind of trying to keep up with my dog. That's really it at this point. Yeah. But yeah, getting back into auditioning is something that's been a huge goal for this year.
Is Georgia still on the cards?
I'm not going to say it's not on the cards. But I would say at this time, at this very moment, no. But honestly, you never know what's going to happen. Just like with A Story Worth Living, we didn't know what was going to happen. And now here it is. And it's been doing very well. So I'm like, you never know what's going to happen.
Hopefully you can, if we get into any more film festivals, hopefully you can get in.
No.
To travel to one.
Now let's hope. Yeah. Because every time the one that was really hard to not go to was LA. That one was, I'm like, I really wanted to go so bad.
Weren't you in New Orleans or something that weekend?
I was in New Orleans the next weekend.
That's what it was. And you're like,
yeah.
I can't travel back to back. Yeah.
Yeah. I was in New Orleans the next weekend, and then I was in Hawaii the week or so
That's
after.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're like, too much travel.
And then everything shut down, and it's like, okay, I guess I can't travel anymore.
Yeah, it's too bad you couldn't go like abroad to like the Germany or Greece.
Greece happened in person. I am kicking myself for not going. Like, honestly, I really thought we were going to get into another festival that the festival director was following us, like really gung-ho, liking our stuff, and then we didn't get in. But to be honest, I'm okay with that because they ended up being virtual. And I'm like, I would have been so pissed if, we would have gotten in and they're like, all right, guys, it's virtual. But Greece happened in person, and that's like my number one country to go to, actually.
Yeah.
So I'm kicking myself for not going, but they gave a 2-week notice. It's not realistic to plan a trip to Europe on 2 weeks. So.
2 weeks, yeah.
Yeah.
Joe, have you ever done any writing, directing? Or do you have it, or is it in the works, the future?
I've always toyed with the idea of writing. Like I'll have ideas in my head, and they always come to me if I'm like taking the dog for a walk, or if I'm mowing. For whatever reason, that's when the ideas pop into my head, but then I just forget to write them down. I've been very bad about that. So it's always been a passing thought in my head. I think I directed once, but it was a play in high school. It was like a short play, but I never directed anything film related at all. I don't know. I mean, I think I would like to do it sometime in the future. I think at this point, if you are doing anything in the film industry, you kind of have to learn or do a little bit of everything in order to really gain a perspective on how it all works. So that's always been on the table to write and direct.
Yeah, it's Vanessa can go. Directing is very challenging.
But I'm not gonna do what she did of direct, and I don't want to, because I don't know how you, here's one thing. I don't know how you stayed so calm, at least the whole time. The whole time. I don't know how you did it, because there's just so many things that are going through your head. And I think that's one reason why I just can't rave enough about my experience on this set, was because, yeah, there are days that were tough, but it was never anything where you were like, you just freaked out or like you got stressed. You were just like, okay, this is what needs done. Oh, we're
shifting, we're pivoting.
You were so good at just accepting changes that I was like, I know if I had all these different hats, I'm like, I have to go away. I have to leave. And you were just like, all right, we're doing this. It's fine.
Honestly, do you want to hear putting the owl and the stress behind that scene coming together, putting that scene aside? You want to know the most like annoyance thing on set?
What was it for you?
My cats.
Oh,
like, remember we were like trying to get Rocky to cooperate, and like one would be in the screen. So we're like, okay, cool, stay here until we are done. Boom, 10 minutes later, like after shooting, and then like another scene, they would like immediately look into the camera, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, they were just annoying to work around.
I know I had to tell somebody because they were like, oh, was that a sound effect for the cat? I said, no, that was actually the cat. That cat does not like me. No.
Joe, you're not alone.
Yeah.
He doesn't like many people.
They're demons. Rocky's the demon.
Yes.
Rocky's the demon.
Mojo's the chill one.
Yeah.
Why did you, speaking of that, when you brought that up, why did you give them different names?
What?
I think they're credited different names in the credits.
No, they say Rocky Leonard and Mojo Leonard. That's right. That my cats have last names.
No, they're names in the movie.
They're our children.
I thought their names in the movie, they were listed something different.
They shouldn't be. Oh, you know what? Unless if it was like cat number 1, cat number 2.
I think something like that. I was like, just give them their names. They're not trained. They're not trained for film yet.
You know what? I do actually say Rocky's name in the movie though. Or maybe I don't say Rocky. I say Shark. And that is true. Brady and I do call him Shark. But now we can't anymore because he has no teeth.
Well, that's right.
So you might like him a little bit better, Joe.
That's a
he
plus.
Loves you.
Which is fine, yeah. But I just remember that cat demon.
Yeah, I think when we filmed Never Again at Vanessa's house.
Yeah, and I just remember everybody was like, "Don't go near the cat. Don't go near Rocky." That's what it was. So then this time I was like, "Okay, no, I'm a little more comfortable. I can go near the cat." And I think I picked him up, didn't I? Or did I pick up?
Probably.
Because
brave man.
All right, nope.
It's right for oh no, I think I had to for the one scene, and he was not happy. We had to do it like 4 times, and every time he was getting more and more pissed.
I remember I was trying not to laugh too, because I ended up laughing anyway, because I'm like, it's hard not to, because that cat just was so pissed.
It's his nature.
Yeah,
it is. It's his nature. But thank you guys so much. This was a lot of fun. Talking about this. I'm very proud, Vanessa. I'm very proud of you for this hard work you've done for this movie. I absolutely loved it. I hope you do get distribution, and I hope it goes in your favor, as in they don't change much of it. And you guys were both absolutely fantastic in it. Joe, I still gotta say, you still remind me so much of you watching that movie. I don't know why. It's just the subtle things, like you stalking her and the smile you have of her. If I show this to like my former coworkers, who are the ones who told me, they're like, you remind us of you. And I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, yeah, Joe from You. If I show them this, they're just going to be like, we were right. I'm like, what? Yeah. I'm like, oh, great.
So
Like-
I think I mentioned this earlier, but we didn't really elaborate or expand on it. But there is a drinking game to A Story Worth Living. Anytime Jake smiles and Allie cries,
Take a
you
shot.
take a sip. You take a
Oh.
sip. Although I feel like we need to change the rules because anytime there's a drone shot, you take a shot. Oh my gosh, there's like back-to-back drone shots, especially before the waterfall scene. Like literally it's 3 drone shots or 4 in a matter of like 5 minutes. So I'm like, oh, we should probably change those rules.
Yep. No,
I
keep
know
it.
Zach loves
makes it
his
fun.
drone shots. So
Mhm.
that's I think he told me about the drink game, but he didn't tell me the rules. So, but I can see that taking a sip for Allie cries or a Jake laugh. It's just
Like smirks, you know.
that's a lot because he Joe, you did that you did kind of like a creepy little smirk a few times. I'm not gonna lie.
It's like I did.
I mean, it's just like it's kind of like that's what I just watching. I'm like, Vanessa lied to me. This ain't my mental health. He's like stalking her or something. Like maybe that triggers her mental health. I don't know.
So there, at least whenever the premiere happened, and some of my friends went, well, I mean, it's not a spoiler, but they honestly thought that Jake wasn't real.
Fascinating.
Yeah, they thought, they were like, oh, Jake's not real. And it kind of, whenever, as soon as you said that towards the beginning of the interview, like, yeah, Jake's too good to be true. I'm like, well, there is a theory that Jake
You know
wasn't even.
what?
Ooh, I
You know
like that
what?
theory.
I would say the exact same thing because you're right. He never met Melissa, and if he didn't meet the parents, or if he didn't meet anyone else,
Then it would have been.
I could so believe
Because I think that was what they thought at first, and then when I went to Allie's parents, then they're like, okay, maybe not, maybe, or maybe they're just kind of going along with it, and they're like, oh, here's Allie's just running over nobody, but we're just gonna play along.
But the first time we see you, you interrupt the class, so it kind of establishes
Yeah.
you are real. But
Yeah.
I could definitely
That's
see that.
fascinating though.
That's a
I
nice.
like
That's a
that.
nice little twist. That could have been a
It's
nice.
not even just the parents though. He also meets Brittany.
Brittany.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to bring this up. So I had to think of a question about Brittany's character. Was she always established to be like
The mean
the
girl.
villain of the movie?
Yeah. I think it was just to add a little bit more drama. And then not to mention too, is like, why didn't they get along? They're from the same school and like same history, same background, whatever. Like what is all this tension and drama between Allie and Brittany? So I think it just adds to the drama aspect.
Yeah.
Leaving it up to the interpretation to the audience of why they don't have a good history together.
Yeah. Then she kind of like said, "Oh, father killed herself." It's like she's acting like it's a joke. That's
It was very
I mean,
callous. Yeah.
people
Very
that it's a nat
emotionless.
people do that naturally. It just happens. It sucks, but it happens. But yeah, that's what sometimes I was watching this. I'm like, what? Like, why did Vanessa write her so mean? Like, I don't get it.
I'll tell you the reason why after, the real
Okay.
reason why after we're not screening or
Okay.
recording.
But thank you guys so much. Quick fire question, because this will be out before the Super Bowl. Who's winning? Los Angeles or Cincinnati?
I want Bengals.
I want the Bengals too. Like it's Ohio, but my husband's rooting for the Rams. So I'm just like, oh, whatever.
I think it'll be the Rams, but I want the Bengals to win.
Interesting. I thought the Rams were the underdog.
No.
I could be wrong though. Oh, they aren't.
No.
So that makes me want to root for Ohio even more.
Yeah.
No. Because one, Cincinnati's a young team. They will hopefully get there again because Burrow's amazing. But I want to see stats. I don't think Stafford has much left in him. I want to see him win it.
That's exactly what Brady said, my husband. He's like, I think it's about time for Stafford to have his win. So
Plus,
that makes
Joe.
okay. Maybe that's tugging at my heartstrings a little bit since Cincinnati could come back next year.
Yeah.
Joe, I'm sorry to say this, but this Super Bowl is kind of an FU to Cleveland because Cincinnati's in it. And then they traded their star receiver Beckham to the Rams. So it's kind of an FU. So one of them's going to win.
It's all right. It's fine.
I hate the Browns.
You hate the Browns. Okay. Because I don't follow it enough. Like I only got to watch a couple games this season anyway, not of the Browns, because every time I'm like, I just know the Browns are disappointment most of the time. But I don't keep up with it enough. But then I think it was the Bengals Steelers game that I watched, and I was like, wow, the Bengals are really good. They could go far. So I was like, it's just kind of nice to see. It's still an Ohio team. It's an Ohio representation, but yeah, to Cleveland, no, sorry.
I can't root for Ohio anything, so I'm Rams. But before we go, Vanessa, where can people find you?
Instagram, A Story Worth Living Movie. Same thing for Facebook, A Story Worth Living Movie, and then Twitter, Worth Living Film
and YouTube. You have your own YouTube channel?
We do. I don't know what the link is. Just look up A Story Worth Living Movie. Yeah.
Yeah. Joe, what about you?
Oh God, I don't even know if I remember my names anymore. Instagram, it might be, Instagram, Joe _ Morales, maybe. I don't know. I've changed it a few times. Facebook, Twitter, I think it's still at Average Joe Life spelled with a Y instead of an I. That's it.
You brought it up. Where can people check out your podcast?
It's All Been Done Radio Hour. So you can kind of find it anywhere that you listen to podcasts from, but it's All Been Done Radio Hour.
All right. Thank you guys so much. Definitely check out A Story Worth Living. You can check out their social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and then see how to purchase the DVD. But thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
If you purchase the DVD too, if I can do a little plug. If you
Go
purchase
ahead.
the DVD, you get 2 different versions of the film, plus you get behind the scenes, really cool of the mountain scene, of the waterfall scene. You get behind the scene clips. You have an alternate ending.
Mm-hmm.
You have bloopers. It's all this other stuff that you can only get on the DVD. Plus, I don't know if we mentioned, but a portion of sale proceeds will be going to further mental health at the ZEP Center organization. So you're not just purchasing to support local filmmaking, independent filmmaking, but you're also purchasing to put money where your mouth is and to really help make a difference in the lives of mental health.
Yes, definitely help raise mental health awareness. But thank you guys so much for checking this out. We're out.
Thanks.